All right, everybody. Welcome to another week of Sons and Daughters. So happy that you guys are tuning in for another week. We have a great guest today. We've been getting some really great guests on the show. And all of that is because of you guys, subscribing, because of you guys liking, your comments, your feedback. Absolutely, it's because of you guys reaching out to our guests and letting them know what you thought about hearing them on the show. All of that stuff is going to help grow this podcast. And we want to do that because we want to do that for you guys to be able to share these incredible stories of these people who are extraordinary. And we have an extraordinary person today. But before we get to that, I do want to kind of go back and we found this great comment from Robert, and he was actually commenting on Marty Smith's interview. Marty Smith was actually the very first guest on Sons and Daughters. It feels like a really long time ago, and one of our most popular episodes so far. So if you haven't had a chance to see that, make sure you go back. Marty and I have been friends for more than 20 years, and I definitely learned things about him in that interview that I didn't know. It was a really great kind of one-on-one chat with one of my really good friends, and obviously someone that all of us know and watch on TV regularly. So Robert had this to say about the Marty Smith interview. He said, when Marty described his mother, it was so much like my mother. She died at 59 from ovarian cancer. I'm so sorry, Robert. That's really hard. Same story. She went through all of her treatments and was cancer-free, and then went back for a checkup, and the cancer had spread and was terminal. My father struggled and was never the same after, and really none of us were. Cancer is really cruel. It is. Thank you, first of all, for being so honest and vulnerable. I'm sure that that's a time in your life that was painful and probably still very, very painful. I think what's really interesting about this show is that it allows people like Robert to have a totally different connection with someone like Marty Smith, who they may never meet. They may never share a beer or a dinner, but they have a common thread, both of them. And I love the fact that Robert was able to kind of hear Marty's story and realize that he's not alone. None of us are, by the way. It's one of the reasons I think I'm pretty honest with some of the things that have happened in my life, because I know that there's someone out there that can connect, that can relate, and can realize that no matter what kind of tries to pull us down at certain times in our lives, you always have the power to kind of rebound. So, Robert, thank you for sharing that with us, and I'm so sorry about what you and your family went through. Cancer is very, very cruel. Of course, we all unfortunately know someone who has battled it or lost their battle with cancer. So appreciate you sharing that with us. We do have a great guest today, somebody that I've known for a little over a decade, but have never been able to sit down. And by the way, we all know who he is. I've never been able to kind of sit down and talk to him like this. Steve Wojciechowski, former Marquette head coach, currently on the staff at the Utah Jazz. Was also an assistant coach at Duke when I used to cover college basketball. Back then, Coach K didn't do interviews, halftime interviews, whatever it may be, post-game interviews, and we always had to have an assistant. Jeff Capel was a guy that I interviewed a lot, but so was Wojo. And then when I was at Fox, I was able to cover one of his games at Marquette when he was a head coach. So it was really cool to kind of see him in that capacity. Obviously a great player at Duke, somebody who, no matter who your team is in college basketball, you know the name Wojo. You know the floor slap. You know what he was able to do as a point guard. You may love him, you may hate him, but today on Sons and Daughters, we get to know him. All right, everybody. Okay, so one of the first guests that I had on this podcast, actually episode number 2, was Hall of Fame coach Mike Krzyzewski. If you did not get a chance to watch that podcast with Coach K, I strongly urge you to go back, because anytime you get a chance to listen to that man speak, first of all, you listen, but to listen to his story, kind of where he came from, growing up, some of the decisions that he made in his life that saw him end up at Duke, saw him end up as obviously one of the most famous coaches, most successful coaches ever. It's pretty deep. I really enjoyed that conversation. One of the things he said that I feel like I think about a lot is he said that his mother taught him to make sure that you get on the right bus. And obviously what he meant by that was make sure that the people that are on the bus, the person that's driving the bus and where that bus is going is in the right direction that you want to be in. And I think it's really important also to make sure that you have the right people on your bus so that you are all making that journey together. The guy that we're going to talk to today, Steve Wojciechowski, he is most certainly one of those people that is on Coach K's bus, that would be on the Hall of Famers bus. And listen, the name Wojo is going to evoke different emotions for many different people, obviously, depending what color blue you wear. But one emotion that should be at the top of that is respect, because what we're going to learn today is how the son of Ed and Peggy Wojciechowski from Severna Park, Maryland, became first-generation college student and graduate, All-American, National Defensive Player of the Year, Olympic gold medal winning coach. I can kind of continue to go. But you might be surprised to know that all of that came close to not happening, because the name Wojo would not be legendary if he didn't make a change between his sophomore and junior year. 20 years old, Steve. 20 years old you were between your sophomore and junior year. By the way, we're the same age, and we have a big one coming up this year, don't we?
We do.
Fellow Leo. I'm a fellow
That's right.
Leo, so we'll be celebrating right around the same time.
Respect.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me on. It's hard to believe, when I was 20 years old, hearing Coach K talk about getting on the right bus, and now as I'm months away from 50, I still think about getting on the right bus. And, as you were reading some of the things that, I've been fortunate to be a part of, the reality is I've gotten on the right bus my whole life. Sometimes, and most of the time, intentionally, and sometimes unintentionally. But I feel like I've been a product of the people I've surrounded myself with. So the bus analogy is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of that starts with the people, it's your family, right? It's the people that you don't even choose to have around you that teach you how to make the right decisions. And I want you to tell me, obviously your mom, I just mentioned their names, Ed and Peggy. Your mom was right, your supporter, and your dad was a hard worker. And you grew up kind of watching that evolve. What was that like for you as a kid?
Well, I feel so fortunate to have my family. Like you said, you don't get to choose your family, but I always tell people if I did have a choice, I'd choose them every time. I feel so fortunate to grow up in the household that I grew up in. My dad, Edward, was the oldest of 6, grew up in a Polish family in Southwest Baltimore, and it was a family of longshoremen. Basically, he was a second generation citizen. His grandparents came over from Poland, and they came here to work, and they worked on the docks. And if you know anything about the docks, some people, I'm probably dating myself, but there's a movie called On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando. It's a hard life. You go to the Union Hall every day and you try to get work. And the work on the docks on a day-to-day basis can look different. It could be working in the rail yard or on the ships or at the sugar house. You didn't know, but he worked very hard to try to create a life for my brother and sister and I that he didn't have. And my mom was the rock, however. My dad was the prototypical hunter-gatherer, and I say this with as much love as I can. He had a caveman element to him. He was a protector. He was a provider, and that's the role he knew, and that's the role he excelled at. But my mom was the rock. She was a stay-at-home mom, and when you say that, that is about a poor description of what she did.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because she made the house a home. She filled it with love, support, and I could not imagine for somebody who was so kind and loving and caring, I could not imagine growing up in a house where their mom was stronger and provided support for the family unit that allowed all of us to go on and do some pretty good things.
Did you know how hard your dad worked? Because I don't sometimes think that like our kids today realize like I know I'm not working the docks, right? But like when you're traveling and you're in a suitcase and you're always like, I don't know if they know truly how much. Like, were you aware at a young age that your dad was like grinding it out?
Yes and no. No, in that I don't think any young
Yeah.
and immature brain can completely grasp how hard parenting is,
Yeah.
and at times just being an adult is. Um, so I don't know that I appreciated it to the level I should as a kid, but certainly now
Hmm.
as I'm older, and I just have visions of him coming in after work and covered in soot and taking his work shoes off at the door, and there'd be dust and dirt all over the floor. I mean, there were certain vivid memories where I'm like, my goodness, I mean, he would take his pickup truck and he in the back seat, he'd sleep so he could be the first one to the union hall, so he could
Wow.
get the best jobs, or work a double shift. So yes, I mean, it's more in pictures
Yeah.
than like the actual, like I had a conscious thought like, he's grinding for us.
Hmm.
But I did instinctively know like something about this guy is like, I don't know if it's normal because nobody else in our neighborhood is like doing this stuff.
Like, yeah, because I mean, what was like, I grew up I think my mom, I mean, she didn't make a lot of money. Our house, I just looked it up actually, I think it was 1,200 square feet. And that's what we lived in until I was 18 years old. And so, I grew up in a situation where it was like, people around me had more. I didn't really know that I didn't have. My mom worked 3 jobs. You always knew that she was gone. And I definitely think that for me personally, that set such a tone with me. A, because I knew I didn't want to be in that situation when I was an adult. Do you know what I'm saying? And B, I just knew that hard work, it was just hard work.
Yeah, my mom and dad got married early, and basically my dad played high school sports with my mom's brothers. And my mom was the oldest daughter of 8.
Jeez.
And, her mom was sick with like rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, 8 kids, I can't imagine how how you feel how you feel great after that.
No, yeah, that's a lot.
But she had health problems. So my mom, in some respects, was like the second mom to her family home. And she had 6 brothers. And so my mom and dad met when they were in high school, and my dad was playing sports with her brothers. And they obviously hit it off and had a relationship early. And my dad was a really good student. We always thought he was telling us tall tales, but he, like before he passed away, he would say like, look, I had a scholarship to the University of Maryland for lacrosse and soccer. And my brother and sister and I were all athletes. We were like, yeah, okay. Like, who turns that down to go work as a longshoreman on the docks? And so, but he did. Like when we cleared out the family home, those were papers,
Wow.
where you have letters from the university. He did. And he did that because he came from a working class family. He saw a path for a better life through the docks. And it wasn't necessarily the job, it's how you handle everything away from the job, how you save your money, the
Wow.
decisions you make, where you go and who you hang out with. And so he and my mom, shortly after they got married, left South Baltimore, which is a great place, but can be rough, to move to Anne Arundel County, near where BWI Airport is. And so they bought one of the first homes in a new neighborhood development in the county, which was a big move for him. And it was first or second home. And what's since grown up around that is a beautiful place to live. But it started with a dream on a piece of farm that was about to be redeveloped.
Wow.
And so that's where I grew up, and it was a great place to grow up. In addition to the people I got to grow up with.
Gosh, that's a big family. I can't imagine what holidays are like. Your dad's one of 6, your mom's one of 8. That's
And basically we were all in the same 2 counties.
That's correct. That's a lot. I think I've got a big family. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of personalities.
Big holiday gatherings.
Speaking of personality, what's that?
But loving holiday gatherings.
It's funny because I heard you a quote, and I believe that this is much later in life that you said this, but it even made me start to kind of think about my own relationship with my kids and if I'm doing enough. And you said that people who are trying to achieve things at high levels, there's always a fear of failure. Unconditional love and support from your family, your fear goes down because you know at the end of the day, you're always going to have something that you can fall back on. That's beautifully said, Steve, because again, like just that, someone's always there for you no matter what, does give you the ability to go, all right, I'm gonna go try this. I can fail. I can fly and fall because someone's gonna catch me.
Yeah, my folks didn't come out and just say, like, we're gonna give you unconditional love and unfailing support, but that's what I felt. And I'm sure my brother and sister did as well, where they pushed us to try things, and when we failed, that was part of the process. And you gotta analyze why and decide if it's worth going after, and if it is, go for it. And so that wasn't like a dinner table conversation.
Yeah. We got your back. Go ahead, do it. If you fail, we got your back. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, it's an unspoken thing, right? But you just have that faith that you know that these people love you. Isn't that what you all want to create with your kids?
Yeah, I mean that's the ideal. I think that's what we want our kids to feel like, no matter where they are in life or what they're going through, good or bad, that at the end of the day, it's gonna be okay, and you will always have people love you for who you are. And my folks were able to create that on a daily basis. And I mean, certainly that didn't mean I got to do whatever I wanted and try whatever I wanted and make whatever decision I wanted. I mean, that's about as far from the environment I grew up in as you can get. But I never felt, regardless of what I did or what I experienced or whether I had great success or failure, that they weren't going to be there for me.
All right. So your mom has said, and I've read articles, that she said you were fearless. So, and of course, we all know the story about, like, I've read the Superman, like just cracking your head open, getting back up, like doing all that stuff. I did look up some synonyms of fearless. And so tell me if you are also these things, Steve. Brave.
I can be.
Daring.
Calculated.
Spirited.
Yes.
Overconfident.
At times, although the older you get, the more you realize humility is just a week away.
Oh, amen. Amen. I always say the further your feet get off the ground, the harder the fall.
That's right.
Hot-headed.
Gotten better at it, but I've been known to be hot-headed at times.
Yes, so that's what we're going to get into now. Okay, when did you start to think that you could play basketball in college? Like when did that kind of become a thing in your world?
Probably when I got to high school. When I grew up, I played every sport. And I don't come from a basketball family. Like, one of the things, probably because I went to Duke and followed Bobby Hurley, who obviously, the family roots in basketball are maybe as deep as any family there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not how I grew up. I mean, I grew up the son of a longshoreman who was an outstanding athlete, but the basketball piece wasn't really in the equation. So, like, I was really into soccer when I was young, and I was pretty darn good at it. I played every basketball, baseball, soccer, lacrosse. Like, if there was a sports season, I was playing it, and at times there were two sports going on at that time. My brother and my sister played lacrosse and field hockey at Loyola College in Maryland. My brother played college baseball, but like the basketball thing was not, that was not part of the equation. And there's some people you look at and you're like, oh, you should be a basketball player. Have you ever thought of that? Like
you weren't that guy.
That has never once happened to me my entire life, where they're like, yeah, you played college sports. They're like, oh, what did you play? Were you a fencer? Were you like? I was like, no, I actually played basketball. But I probably at 10 years old, I had a coach, and he actually coached my brother too. It's a funny story. When my mom was pregnant with me, my brother was 10 years old playing for this legendary coach, and where I grew up, named Ed Wilson, who was a retired Navy graduate who dedicated his life to teaching the game of basketball and using that as a vehicle to improve people's life. And he would have these outdoor free clinics for kids 4 nights a week at Severna Park High School. And my brother at that time, when he was 10, went. He still was doing it by the time I was 10 years old. But when my mom was pregnant, Mr. Wilson said, Peggy, if that's a boy, I need to coach him. He's going to do something special. And,
wow.
So when I was 10, I didn't want to play basketball. I was really good at soccer. And I was comfortable in that lane. And my mom was like, you got to give it a try. You have to play for Mr. Wilson. And so I did. And, I'd be lying if I said basketball came as easy to me as some of the other sports I played. But Mr. Wilson, and, he gave me a lot of confidence. And he made it really fun.
Sounds like he changed your life, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. And, it's amazing how important youth coaches can be.
Is he still around?
No, he's not. He's not. And he was the best guy. And he had the bushiest eyebrows, and he couldn't hear for so you had to get like within like 4 inches. And at 10, I was like up to his waist, and I'm like, teach me a spin dribble. And I'd do a spin dribble and it'd be like, oh, you look like Magic Johnson.
Wow.
And I looked nothing like Magic Johnson.
He gave you the confidence.
He made me feel like I did. And really from that was like that's when the fire started.
Yeah.
And, it grew from there. And, you think back, like, things that change your life. Like, if my mom would have said, like, you know what, you're playing enough soccer and you got baseball in the spring and, like, you're good, like, and I didn't go to that, my life would still, I'm confident, and I'm not overconfident, but I'm confident that I would still have a good life. But it would not have turned out like it did. And you think of the encouragement of your mom and the influence of youth coaches. It just speaks to that impact. And I've never forgotten that.
I wonder if he had the same effect or kind of effect on your brother, and that's what your mother saw and why it was so important for you to go be coached by him as well.
Well, if you'd go to these clinics and you saw this like hard of hearing man with bushy eyebrows who once was in the Navy, and 50 to 60 kids just dropped off by their parents on a weeknight for 2.5 hours. And then his former players or the guys who played for him would come back and teach the young kids. I mean, it was just like as wholesome an environment as you could get. And there were a lot of good players. I wasn't the first good player he coached. I mean, he coached dozens and dozens of high-level athletes, professional NBA player, Danny Ferry, guys who played college, Mark Teixeira after me, and Gavin Flo. Like, we're talking Major League Baseball players, NBA players, NFL players. Like, we all kind of got our start in that fertile ground that he
Jeez.
that he created for kids, and I just benefited from it.
You can see how emotional you get when you think about him. Is it because he's no longer here, or just when you think about the impact that he had on your life?
I don't do a lot of rewinding.
Yeah, I know. I just believe me. That's the hard thing about this, right? Is like it,
Yeah, yeah,
See, I'm a
you know,
rewinder. Like I think that I think there's always someone out there that's gonna connect with something that I say, something that I've gone through, whether it be painful or not painful. It could be beautiful, right? I mean, this is a beautiful story, and so I'm always kind of like open to sharing those things. And so I'm starting to learn that it's harder for some people to do that, and that's why this podcast is kind of hard for me to navigate as well. So.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I'm not afraid of it, and I'll
Hmm.
certainly talk to anybody
Hmm.
about my past experiences, but I don't often go back to when I was 9 or 10. Like, I mean, you want to talk about an origin story? Like, that's how I got started in basketball,
That's great.
and if anybody saw me play on an outdoor court on a weekday night
You look
and
like
they were
Magic
on the
Johnson.
county at 10, well, I don't know if they would have said that, but fortunately, it's a big part of my journey.
So that's when you fall in love with basketball, thanks to Coach Wilson.
Yeah, and so like, I dove in. I mean, I can go pretty deep, um, and I fell in love with it, and so I found myself thinking about it, watching it, trying to learn how to get better at it, putting myself in positions to play it um, as much as I could, and it was different. Like, look, I didn't. My dad wasn't paying for like personal trainers. He wasn't paying for a strength coach. Like he wasn't doing any of that.
Yeah.
It was like if you want it, like work at it. All right, well, what am I what am I supposed to work at? And I fell in love with it there, and then by the time I was in eighth grade, I was good enough to start being recruited by Baltimore Catholic League schools, and like in terms of basketball, the Baltimore Catholic League schools are the best of the best in the city. Best coaches, really good schools, high level competition. And so in eighth grade, I started getting recruited by a number of the Baltimore Catholic League schools. And I was being recruited by Ray Mullis at Cardinal Gibbons High School and Mike Dalem at Cardinal Gibbons High School. And they, quite frankly, did the most. And I made a decision in eighth grade to leave what was a familiar community. I
Hmm.
went to public school. I went to kids that I played sports with, I grew up with, and I made a decision in eighth grade to attend Baltimore Gibbons or Cardinal Gibbons High School in Baltimore City, and in Southwest Baltimore, um, and that was kind of the next big decision that my parents supported. I mean, again, we weren't like my parents weren't looking for me to go to a school where you're paying a lot of tuition and all
Mm-mm.
that kind of stuff. But they saw how much I loved it and how much I worked at it, and to a certain degree, my obsession with it. And they felt like this would be a good spot for me.
Was your obsession like I wonder like because I mean like I've gone through times like where I'm just like this is all I do, right? Whether triathlons or whatever, it's like I'm all in. Like what like I've been asked like are you racing towards something? Are you racing away from something? Are you running? And so yeah, I mean like was it getting better? Was it proving? Do you know what motivated 14-year-old, 13-year-old Steve at that time?
Yeah, it was love. I mean, I wasn't playing because I thought I was going to get a scholarship. I wasn't playing because
You loved it.
like I could predict the future, and I knew that if I played this, then A, B, C, and D were going to be in my future. I loved it, and I couldn't get enough of it, and I wanted to play it, and I wanted to figure out how to be better at it, and I wanted to figure out how I could help the teams I played on win, and I wanted to see how good I could get. And look, the reality is there's a lot of people when I kind of transitioned from soccer to basketball who thought I was an idiot. There was a
You're
lot of
probably pretty good
people.
at soccer.
I was pretty good,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of people who thought I was an idiot to go from where I grew up to playing in the Baltimore Catholic League. Like why, like why? But I didn't think of any of that. I thought about the game and how I could pursue my best within the game. And so, like, I was certainly not anointed a prodigy. I just couldn't get enough of it. And, by the time I was in high school, I was pretty good. Not good enough, like, I was on JV as a freshman. I was able to start a lot as a sophomore, but even then, like, I was being pegged for like a low Division I player. And I can remember at the end of my sophomore year, I was walking with one of the assistant coaches at my high school, a guy named Mike Dalem, and he asked me, he's like, "Where do you want to go with this?" And I said, "Coach, you know what? If I could just get to college for free and, my parents didn't have to pay, I don't care where I'll go." I said, "I'll go to Towson State," which is Towson University now here in Baltimore City. I said, I'd be over the moon to go to Towson State. And he said something to me then. He's like, "Look, I don't know how good you're going to get, but like, you need to set your sights higher. Like, you could play anywhere from Towson State to NC State. And you need to start thinking of yourself that way." And so, and again, at that point, it's like you get a college letter in the mail, like a questionnaire, like how tall are you, where do you go to school, what grade are you in, and you think it's like the greatest thing ever. And there were some guys I played with at my high school that have like, seemed like 100 letters in their mailbox, and like I'd have 4 and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." But I just kept working at it. I kept putting myself in positions to push myself. I kept trying to find avenues to get better at it, and I did. But at the end of my junior year at Cardinal Gibbons, I was being recruited at the low to mid-major level in college. My first official visit was to Drexel, Billy Harrion with Malik Rose and Brian Holden, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I was being recruited by the University of Pennsylvania and being recruited by Princeton because I was a good student. Mm-hmm. And when my high school junior year ended, I thought I was going to end up at either Penn or Princeton to pay for Coach Dunphy or Pete Carrill. And I mean, both those programs were top 25 or just outside top 25 programs at the time. You're talking about 2 legendary coaches. And that would have been pretty damn good.
Jeez.
That would have been pretty damn good. And that seemed like a dream come true. And at the end of my junior year, in the summer between my junior and senior year, I went to the 5-star basketball camp. And the 5-star basketball camp, it was run by a guy named Howard Garfinkel, who became a key player in my life. And I had been to 5-star because my Coach Mullis and Coach Dalem were huge 5-star guys. So I would go to the 5-star camp for 2 weeks every summer. But the junior summer is different because that's when like people start really recruiting you and making decisions on you, or at least guys like me at the time. And I went to June Honesdale, which is in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and it was one of 5-star showcase camps. And so there was Stefan Marbury, who was the best player in the junior class, along with Vince Carter, they were 1A, 1B in the class below me. But there was a lot of like high level guys being recruited at a high level. And the camp occurred in the middle of the mountains, all outdoor courts, and no college coaches were there. And I probably played as well that week as I ever have. And I ended up getting MVP of the camp.
Jeez.
And up until that point at 5-star, I was known as a really hard worker. They had a voluntary station called Station 13. So you had to do 12 stations throughout the day. This is a teaching camp. But Station 13 was an optional station. And from the time I started as a freshman in high school until that point, and really till I finished playing at 5 star, I won the Station 13 award every week I went. Meaning that in terms of like volunteering for extra work, I did the most and I did the best when I was there in terms of work, not performance, in terms of how hard I tried. But this camp, I got MVP of the camp.
All those
And
guys, with all those guys there.
with all those guys there. And
Jeez.
unfortunately, there was no college coaches there. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I can recreate. I don't know if I can recreate this one. But Garf, was a major player in the amateur basketball scene. He called Sonny Vaccaro, who at that time had just left Nike and took his ABCD camp to Converse for a year. So I got invited to Sonny Vaccaro's Converse ABCD camp as a favor to Howard Garfinkel. Because this is, mind you, this is like 2 weeks before the camp starts. This camp started in the beginning of July. That's when the coaches come out. Never been on a plane before.
Oof.
Got on a plane, left BWI, flew to Detroit, took a van up to Ypsilanti, Michigan. And next thing you know, I was sitting in the bleachers at Eastern Michigan, and they were calling roll for the All-American camp. And so there's 125 of the best players, guys that I read about, and a lot of guys I'd never played against. The world was not as small as it is now, where guys know each other. But they're guys I heard of, I read about. When I say obsessed, I was obsessed. Like, I knew who Antoine Walker was. I knew who Felipe Lopez was. I knew who Kareem Reed was. They had no idea who I was.
Yeah, you did your homework.
Yeah.
You were ready, right? Like you did the work, the studying, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. And to be honest with you, I didn't really think of it that way. I was like following what was lighting me up inside. I was following that direction. And so they called out the teams, and I didn't have a team. So I went to Sonny and I said, Mr. Vaccaro, my name's Steve Wojciechowski. I know you've spoken to Howard Garfinkel about me coming to the camp. I know it was a late addition. Like, I did not hear my name called for a roster spot.
I'm here.
Sonny was like, and Sonny's like, oh, we'll find you one. So he's like, called Gary DeCesar over and introduced us. And he's like, fine, we're going to get him on the team. So they found me a team. The team had 8 Russians on it, none of whom spoke English, and showered less than they spoke English. I ended up on the international team. And, for the vast majority of the people at the camp, it'd be very easy to tell that they were not Russian. Name like Wojciechowski, white kid with blonde hair, they're like, not what I thought a Russian would look like, but I see it, and I was like, my chance, I end up on a team like with all international, none of the good players, that was my thought. It was wrong, but that was my thought, and it ended up in hindsight being the best thing that could have happened to me, because if I would have ended up on team DMV or team Baltimore or team LA, the way I would have had to try to prove myself was through things that I wasn't as good at. Scoring, playing one-on-one basketball, like go getting a bucket. That wasn't really my strength. But for these international guys, like, I could lead them, I could organize them, even though we didn't speak the same language. I can, my facial expressions and at time my mannerisms get the point across enough. You don't really necessarily have to understand my words. We ended up playing team basketball. I made them look good, and more than that, they made me look good. And so in the span of like 4 weeks, I went from like Penn Princeton to Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky. And like, I don't know if I ever fully processed that. Like, my life changed like that.
Fast.
And it was a dream come true, but I didn't. I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe it. And at that time, like, you had a home phone. I don't know, like, you had the phone on the wall, so like nobody was carrying these portable devices. Like, so in order for coaches to reach me, they had
You
to
never
call
left
the
that phone, did you?
they had to call the home phone. And one of the first coaches that called, I had to mow lawns. My dad had me mowing lawns at like 13. I had a lawn mowing service, so I could make money.
Work ethic right there.
That was my allowance.
That's great. I was bagging groceries at 14 so that I could
Yeah.
at least make $3 an hour, like I get it.
Yeah. So they didn't have the same. So they would call the house, and my mom would pick up and be like, "He can't come to the phone. He's mowing the lawn. He's mowing the yard." And I'd call the college coaches back, and they're like, "Were you really mowing the yard?" I'm like, "It's a long story, but yes." And yeah, and then from that point on, I had to make a decision because I had all these schools that were, like, had put in the time, but they weren't Duke and North Carolina. And again, I talked to my high school coaches, and I had this list of schools that would offer scholarships, and they're like, you got to make a decision. Like, what do you want? I'm like, we know you can play and be a really good player, like at these schools that were already on the table prior to ABCD. Do you want to go for it? And I was like, this is going to be, I can't believe it. It's going to be hard. Like, I don't know. Like, this all happened fast. Like, can I play as well as I just did the last month? Like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. And so I started focusing my recruitment on the quote unquote blue bloods. And,
So are we saying that maybe Wojo might have gone to North Carolina? Is that what I just heard? That we had North Carolina and Duke sort of in line?
they were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I never actually visited North Carolina.
All right. Well, your Duke cred is okay then.
Yeah,
I guess
it's safe.
It's safe.
No, but I mean,
What
come on,
was
it's-
it part of the recruiting process that made you go, this is where I want to go? Like, I want to be in Durham.
I mean, the reality is, like, even though I never thought playing at Duke was a possibility, like, in terms of my formative years of like falling in love with college basketball. I mean, first it was Len Bias at the University of Maryland. He's the first basketball player I watched. Where I watched him, I was like, that guy's a superhero. Like, this is crazy. But like that '86 team with Dawkins, Amaker, Billis, Allery, David Henderson. That's when I started watching. And something about that team. And then obviously a little bit later when they added Bobby, that was at the start of my high school career. And you're always looking for guys that you could identify with. So the Hurleys and the Corcianis of the world were guys I was like, oh, okay, well, there's two of them. And so, but Bobby and Duke are always, like, I loved the way they played. I loved, and look, man, Wojciechowski, Krzyzewski, like, at the end of the day, like, my dad's side
magic.
of the family, it's just like, there was no,
Meant to be.
there was no, in hindsight, I wasn't going to go anywhere else.
What was it like to tell your dad? I have the image of like Rudy, right, where his dad's working, in the, I guess is he a coal miner? Maybe he's in the coal mine, and then his son ends up going to Notre Dame, and just that pride level of like this working class man whose son is now his life is going to change forever. He goes to a place like your life is forever changed when you have one of those schools on your resume. And so, what is your dad's reaction to that?
Man, I knew he was proud of me.
Yeah.
There's probably part of him and my mom that were like, what's going on here? What's going on? But, he wasn't like a gentle giant, it was more like, I'm proud of you, and better keep working. It's more like, you better keep working. You better keep working. So, they were proud, and it really happened fast for all of us. Now that I look back at it, I don't know if
Crazy.
Once the treadmill started, up until I got fired, like I don't even think I took time to sit back and realize, like, because it's just like one thing led to the next, and it's like as soon as you take time to think about like everything that was happening, I wouldn't have the capacity to like focus on the next thing that is going on currently.
Yeah, it's I lost my job 3 years ago now, and I definitely understand what you're saying, because you literally are going from the one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, doing what you love, right? I'm doing what I love. I'm working hard. You don't think that it could kind of come to an end, and then when it does, you gotta go, well, I'm not ready for this to be over. Right? Like I may have had long days and I might be tired and I might bitch every once in a while because of this, that, but I'm really not ready for it to be over. And you do have to sort of like do a lot of self-reflection and look back. I found myself doing that a lot over the last couple years.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, Shannon. That's why, like, for me, I tell people all the time, getting fired was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. By the end of my time at Marquette, I was fried physically, mentally, emotionally. I was not in a good place. And it was, I think things add up over the course of, that was probably 45 years. Things add up.
Yeah.
And I've had such a fun, robust, big life, and I didn't see it coming. And so, I mean, not to say I didn't think I was going to have a good life, but you know what I'm saying.
I get it. I'm not supposed to be sitting here.
Yeah.
There's nothing that like in my childhood or whatever that said this is where you're going to end up at all.
Yeah.
And like you, I wasn't that good when I first started. Like I had to work, man. Like that was it, right? I'm gonna outwork you. I promise you, no matter what. If you line me up next to 4 people that are better than me, I'm gonna work harder than them. That's how I'm gonna separate myself from the rest. And that's oftentimes takes a lot of time where you're not really thinking. You don't ever think about like the good, like the positive, the good things you did, because you're always like, I gotta get better. I gotta get better at this. I'm not gonna celebrate what I've done because there's still so much more to do.
Right.
And that whole, you don't want to get too far off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that respect, getting fired allowed me to do all those things that I had neglected for a long time, and it set me up to be as happy as I've ever been.
It's funny because I want to circle back, because when I talked to Coach K, he was my second guest, another thing that I learned from Coach K that I shared with him was I was able to cover Syracuse Duke, the first game at the Carrier Dome. I was working the sidelines again. Like I was like, how in the world, I was courtside reporter. How in the world did I get here? Walking behind the bench, there's Coach K, there's Jim Boeheim. I was like, what the hell? How did I get here? But Coach K said something to me before that game when I asked him about like just the moment, what it meant to him. And he said to me, it was a one-on-one conversation. He said, this is a moment in time. And like, I've remembered that comment from Coach K my entire career. Because we do have these moment in times, and oftentimes we overlook them because we are kind of moving to the next moment. And I think about that a lot when it comes to Coach K. And when I had him on the podcast, he talked a lot about that 94 season, right? Yep. So you're on this fast forward, like you're on this treadmill, boom, 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 everything's happening. You get to Duke, you're about to live out your dreams, and then Coach K steps away, and you guys, I don't think you won 2 games the rest of that year. After that Clemson game, right? It was that Clemson game was his last game. And then you guys win 2 games. Like, were you at all prepared for the adversity that you were going to have to face at 19 years old?
No, I wasn't. I mean, look, the story was supposed to go, you played for a legendary coach your whole freshman year, and Duke goes to their 8th Final Four in 10 years, and that's how the story's supposed to go at Duke. And, like when I was a freshman, I started, I think my first 12 games, we were 9-3. We were ranked pretty highly. But Coach was not completely healthy really that entire season. In hindsight, I'm not sure I recognized that because I didn't have a reference point otherwise.
Yeah.
But now, looking back, it's like, oh yeah, he was not in good shape.
He had back issues. He's talked about that. He got burned out. He was overworking, and he stepped away because he needed to focus on his health, his mental and physical health.
Yeah, and I can remember he came in. We had a players' lounge in the old locker room, and he walked in, and he looked like he hadn't slept in months, and had bags, and just looked beaten in a sweatsuit. And I remember he was in tears and saying like, "I can't do this anymore.
Oh.
I have to step away." And he tried to lay out, a plan. Coach Gaudette was going to be the head coach, and Coach Bray and TA, Tommy Amaker, were going to, help him. But he needed to do this for him and his family. And certainly, like, look, we all understood that. I mean, we could see the pain.
That's got to be, it had been so hard for him.
And the fatigue. And yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys who's going to push it to the limits. And so he left. And at that time, the Duke program was, and I'm not saying anything that Coach hasn't said, was run like a mom and pop shop. Meaning, Coach was responsible for every decision in the program. And at that point, the program had grown. I mean, 7 Final Fours in 9 years. Like, we're talking like, it may have, when he started, been a smaller store. I mean, we're talking about a Fortune 500 company by the time I arrived in 94, but it was still being run like a standalone store. And it beat him. And so when he left, there was a leadership vacuum. And it was not fair for any of the coaches who were asked to. There was.
How do you
there
even?
Was no chance. There was really no
even?
chance for them to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
For Coach G to be successful, it just. I mean, you're talking about a Herculean effort.
Yep.
To follow mid-season after like a traumatic event, like rallying the troops and pulling it together, because we were good, but we weren't Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley.
Yeah, I think you guys only had
we?
like 2 seniors on that team too. I look back, so it was a younger team.
Yeah, we were kind of rebooting after that Grant Hill, Hurley, Leitner ride a little bit, and so we played a lot of close games. We lost pretty much every one of them, and we were like 9-3, and we finished, I think, 13-18, and it was so hard. It was so hard, and it was so hard for everyone. I mean, we all love to live in our own little world and think about how hard it is for us. There wasn't a person that was associated with the program that this wasn't as challenging a year as they faced, and there was no blueprint. There was no manual that said, in case of emergency, break glass, and this is what you do. There wasn't, and so we all struggled. And actually, at the end of my freshman year, and at that time my role had been shifting. Like, I'd start, I wouldn't play, I'd play a little bit, play a lot. It was, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not sure I deserved to play much at all based on where I was at that point in my game. But like, everybody was trying to find like the magic bullet to get this train turned around. So we were playing North Carolina at the end of my freshman year in Cameron. They were loaded. I mean, Jerry Stackhouse, who was a monster, Rasheed. I mean, they were so good. There was Jeff McGinnis, and we were playing them in Cameron. And the clip that everybody remembers from that game, Jeff Capel hits a half-court shot. And everybody thinks that shot like is a game-winning shot. The shot actually put us into overtime. But it's one of Cape's shot is one of the historic shots in the rivalry.
Yeah.
So we go to overtime, and somehow I end up with the ball on the last possession of the game, and we're down. We're down 1 or 2, and we called a timeout. I was supposed to get the ball to Cherokee Parks, who was our best player. He was their senior. He was a really good player, and amazing dude. And the play got busted. And so all of a sudden, I'm like the furthest thing from a one-on-one player. I have to make a one-on-one move and try to get a shot. So I do as time's running out. and I hit the back rim, and we miss and we lose. I mean, really, if we were able to somehow miraculously win that game, it would have. I can't tell you what it would have done for morale. It wouldn't have changed our record all that much, but
No.
like from a morale standpoint, it would have been. I mean, you've been around those games. They're insane. Like they carry more weight.
They do.
So I miss, and we lose,
and that carries a lot of weight too. Missing, like that.
Yes, and I finally broke, and I didn't shower, and I'm sure you had one of these too. I put my Walkman on.
Yeah.
With
the tape.
I think it was a CD Walkman at that time, so I was feeling pretty fancy. And in tears, I just walked back to my freshman dorm, and I remember calling home. Same thing, like pick up the, fortunately it wasn't the rotary, it was just dialing digits, and my mom picked up, and I was bawling. And I just said to her, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I want to come home, and I just want to be normal.
All eyes are on you guys at Duke. That's not an easy pressure cooker that you guys go to there.
No, and
especially your position.
Coach, and following Bobby, and I'm not as good as Bobby, but I figured it out eventually. Coach K was out. My high school coach passed away. My dad was battling cancer at the time. This was a hard year. So I called home. I'm like, get me out of here. What
kept you there?
My dad was not a phone talker. So you're starting to get a picture of my dad. I mean, literally, like, probably spoke to him on the phone less than 20 times in my life, where he actually picked up the phone. So my mom, she starts crying because she hears me crying, and she puts my dad on the phone, and he goes, "What's the problem?" I was like, "I can't do this anymore. I just want to come home." And he goes, "Okay. Well, if you come home, you're going to come work for me at the docks. So you can come home if you want to be normal. You're going to come work with me, and we can work together for the rest of our lives." And that was his way of saying, "You dumb son of a."
Toughen up.
You dumb. So the conversation ended there. I mean, I wasn't going to go home.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home to Baltimore and work on the docks. Like, I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to join a frat at the University of Maryland. That's how I wasn't talking about working at the docks.
Yeah, you're like, come home, have dust on the floor.
And so, like, conversation ended, and at the end, like, they were both on, like, you can do this. You're not going to react this way to something hard because you've worked too hard to get here. Like, get yourself together, regroup. This is like part of the process. Listen to your coaches, do your best, and everything will work out. And so I tried to, as best I knew how at the time. And I mean, again, if my mom and dad were like, yeah, this is hard, you're right, and your coach is full of and you should just come home because we don't like to see you upset, and so you come home and you won't have to be upsetting. Like, if that was the conversation, like, I would have made a big mistake.
Yeah. Your life would have been completely different.
And, fortunately I didn't. And, I wish I could say, like, that phone call, like, flipped the switch and immediately I was a good college player. And
no, but you had to put in the work. And I think that I had no idea until I started kind of digging into your story to talk to you. I had no idea that right? I didn't realize the timeline overlap. Your freshman year was the same year that Coach K had, the time. But the fact that when he came back, he looked at you and he said, "Listen, kid, you'll be back up." Like, is that kind of how that went down?
Yeah, so that was actually at the end of my sophomore year. I mean, I think when Coach came back from his injury, I mean, he was sensitive to what we had all been through. And he was trying to get his feet back on the ground now. I mean, so, like the conversation was like, all of us need to join arms and fight like crazy to try to get Duke back going in the right direction. And my sophomore year was probably the least talented Duke team. It was definitely the least talented Duke team I ever played on. It was probably Coach K's least talented Duke team in his career. We were not very talented, but we fought our ass off. And we started the ACC season 0-4. We won 4 straight. We lost 4 straight. We had to win the last 4. And thank God Chris Collins had an out-of-body experience during his senior year, because he carried our ass to the NCAA tournament, where we played Earl Boykins in the first round, and we lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. The fact that team got to the NCAA tournament, nobody talks about, like, really, that season is about as nondescript a Duke season as you can have in Coach K's tenure. But in some respects, it's one of the most important. Because based on our talent, we should not have been in the NCAA tournament. And where the ACC was at the time, because the ACC was freaking loaded. Mm-hmm. If he has another bad year, I think everybody's life looks different.
Yeah.
And it's so at the end of that year, Coach brought me in and he goes, "You were better in high school. You have not made the commitment or adjustment to the college game. Like, you continue to do that. Your goal should try to be as good a backup to Trajan and Jeff as you possibly can be, because based on what you're doing, like, that's the role that you're trying out for." And I was hurt.
Yeah.
But I was also pissed.
Did you want to go home then too?
No, I did not want to go home. I wanted to show him. That I was in a different mind space then. And he was right. Like, I wasn't arguing with what he said. Like, my high school journey was very laser focused. So I didn't experience like some of the stuff that kids do in high school and then all of a sudden is there in abundance in college.
Yeah.
And so like I had lost focus. I wasn't doing the same things. He was right. And I wasn't. So like when I say I was pissed, I wasn't pissed at him, because what he was saying was right.
Yeah.
I was pissed that he was right, and I was pissed at me. And shortly thereafter, that I found it again.
Got your together.
I found it again.
You worked pretty hard to get it, like lost a bunch of weight, right? Kind of came back and yeah.
I played my sophomore year at 195. I weighed in at the beginning of my junior year at 172. Like I ran my first marathon much later in life, but like I was the things I can control, conditioning and all that, anything that I thought I had control over, I attacked and I dominated. And one of the things I had control over, because we didn't have off-season workouts, we played pickup every day. That was our off-season workout. And so my goal on pickup was to pick up Jeff Capel and Trajan full court in summer pickup, and I did. And I went after them. And slowly over the course of time, I started carving out a role in the summer where the teams I played on won. And, I still wasn't the biggest, the fastest, the best shooter, all that stuff, but I won. I was on winning teams, and I helped those teams win, and that created some momentum and buzz in the summer where Coach started to get word back that besides the physical changes, he could see, like he heard, like, oh, he's playing pretty well. Like he's on one right now. And
This is
so,
such an incredible story because, like, you think about how many times, like, I had no idea. You think of, like, you hear your name, you see you sitting courtside with coach at these games, like what a huge part of the fabric of Duke basketball you are, and you think about how many times that might not have happened, and how different this landscape would have looked if it had, not only in your life but just in basketball. I mean, the joy that you gave so many fans, and the anger and the pissed off and all that stuff, but also, like, you talk about at the beginning, like, you didn't look like a guy that was supposed to play basketball. How many players now realize that you don't always have to be the tallest or the fastest or whatever, but you got to work and you got to play with heart. And you are an example of that for so many people.
well, I appreciate it. And I was at a retreat this weekend that I was helping out with, and Tom Brady spoke, and he said something about his career and kind of his mindset, and that he's like, the biggest advantage that I had was knowing that I didn't have all the advantage
Yeah.
is that the people I was competing against had. And so I had to figure out ways to maximize the things I did. And like when he said that, I identify that. Like, I knew that all things being equal, it may not be a fair fight with some of the guys I was competing against. But I tried to figure out, number one, like, what the guy I was playing for wanted from me and how to try to dominate those areas. And then tried to win around the edges, like conditioning and film study and the like the emotion, the intensity. I never like I didn't have to like work on that. That comes natural. And so, but the other areas, like, I was trying to figure out how to use, what I had to gain advantages on people who had more than me. And that's served me really well.
I also think about a quote. I obviously covered NFL for a long time, and I went into Sean McVay's one of his coaching rooms. We were doing meetings with him, and on the wall was a quote that said, "Failure is not the opposite of success; it is part of it." And I actually had that for a long time in my home gym, because it's so true, right? When you think about the failures, the small little failures, whether that be that 94-95 season, or then Coach K saying you need to do all these things, like small little tiny failures that, you could have gone home, you could have said, I'm done, I'm this. It's not an opposite of success, it's part of the success. And you have to have those moments in order to grow, to realize that that's not where you want to be, to get smarter. And there are a lot of kids who don't have failures, a lot of people who don't have failures. And I think that sometimes doesn't make them as great as the ones who have to fight through stuff.
Yeah, but I couldn't agree more. And a lot of times, like, the old saying is, oftentimes when you think you're buried, you just have been planted.
Huh. I love that.
And so you're just breaking through the shell that no longer serves you. Again, I didn't think of it that way when I was in college.
No.
I didn't think
No.
of it that way when I was in college. But in hindsight, I do, and it's worked out all right.
I know I'm gonna wrap up because we had you for a little while. I do need to ask you this question though, because I think about this a lot. One of the reasons, and I'm sure people will get down on me for this, but one of the reasons when I was covering college sports that I got a little, like, I started to not like it as much was because grown adults were screaming at young kids. Nowadays, right, they're making a lot of money. I think there's an argument to be made there. But when I was covering it in 2012, 13, yeah, they might have been making money, but not outwardly. We didn't know about it. And I remember one time I was covering a Florida game, and Jeff Driscoll had thrown like 4 picks or 2 picks and 2 turnovers. And there was this woman standing behind me in the crowd with like her 9-year-old kid, and she's like, "Driscoll, you suck," right? She's screaming at him. And I'm like, this is like a mom screaming at a 17-year-old kid or an 18-year-old kid. I'm like, and I just like, it started to kind of like, as a mom myself, it started to kind of turn me a little bit. You took so much as a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid? Did you recognize it? Like, did you pay attention to it? Were you so insulated that, like, how did you handle that?
Well,
Did
I
it
don't know
come
that I had.
later? Did it come later? Did the anger and the sort of
No.
like the rage against like the Duke point guard who slaps the ground and does all this stuff, like, did that come later?
No, I would say two things. Number one, did I know that it was going on? Absolutely. Like you're dribbling the ball in Ruppert Arena in front of 20,000 plus fans in the NCAA tournament, and all the Kentucky fans are booing you every time you touch the ball, and you're not even playing them. Like it's hard not to notice
Yeah.
that. So yes, I did. I could feel venom directed at me. However, I didn't think of them. I thought of my team, and I wasn't playing for them. I was playing for my team and for my coaches. And to the extent the attention and intensity that was directed towards me fell on me, I looked at that as good because my teammates didn't have to deal with it.
I get that.
And so, yeah, that stuff didn't bother me,
Yeah.
but like at the same time, it didn't bother me, but there was also like most of my life, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I like literally can't believe this is happening. And, like, and that's an example of it where you have all these, I mean, I played with NBA studs. I mean, I was good and I certainly had an important role. I mean, I was far from the best player. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know necessarily I was signing up for that, but I kind of signed up for it, being the little white point guard at Duke.
Does it make you proud when you saw the guys slapping the ground, slapping the floor, the court this past year? I mean, we see it all the time now, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like,
I
just
know
to
you
set the
didn't
record
necessarily start that, right? But
I did not start.
I know, but like you're
I,
notorious for it. Like that's
I
who
know.
we know.
I tell people all the time, like, I didn't start slapping the floor. It's just the best thing I did as a player, and that's why I'm remembered for it. But yes, like slapping the floor, it's a call to action. And as the leader and the point guard of a team, you have to know that not all moments are created equally in the game of basketball. And there's certain moments that can change the game, can capture momentum, can build on the momentum. And the slapping of the floor was a unified call to action. And that's why I did it.
I'm so glad that you're known for slapping of the floor and not a missed overtime shot off the glass against North Carolina in 93-94 season. Because if you would have gone home, if your dad hadn't have said you're going to come work with us, that would have been what you were known for.
I know.
Thankfully, we were able to change that narrative, and all of us benefited from that, Coach.
Well, I appreciate it.
I do want to read this to you real quick before I let you go. I reached out to one of your former players because you've had some great ones, whether it be coaching at Duke, and which is, I mentioned, where you and I met each other for the first time because Coach K would never do interviews. So it was either you or Jeff Capel or then John Shire that did the interviews at halftime. And then I did get to cover you at Marquette too. I don't know, it was one or two games when I was at Fox. But I reached out to one of your former players and he said, Wojo's completely invested in his players. As an assistant, it was an investment on and off the court and how we were doing personally. His care factor is as high as anyone that I've played for. His passion is contagious.
Wow.
So for someone who I think was motivated for the love of basketball because he loved the sport so much, I think it's a beautiful thing that you still get to do it. First of all, you still get to do what you love. And you are now passing that love and that passion and that energy and all that stuff on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. So.
Well, it's a great game, and it's been amazing to me. And I've learned more from it's been my greatest teacher.
Yeah.
It's been my greatest teacher. And it's really, like, in hindsight, just doing this, like, not that this is an exercise, but just doing this, it's a reminder of, like, really every step along the way, there's a lesson that is bigger than basketball. And so, I can't repay the people. I can't repay Mr. Wilson. I can't repay Coach. But I can try to pay it forward. And that's what I hope to do.
I pinch myself too sometimes. Like, how did I get here? How am I working with these people? How am I sitting at the table I went to 3 colleges in 5 years. I didn't get good grades. I had no business sitting at a table with people that went to Princeton or Duke. I'm in Coach K's office before Duke, Carolina. There's Coach K walking in. Like, I how many times I know exactly what you're saying. Like, what the hell? Little Shannon, this was not in the cards. And here I am. Right. I get it.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes there's a bigger purpose for why you move in that direction. So.
Well, thank you for taking me on a walk down memory lane.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did, and I appreciate it.
I don't think I would have hit the rewind button without your little push. So I appreciate it.
All I have to say is, wow. Oh my gosh, wow. What a great interview. It is mind-blowing to me. I was just talking to my producer here. Like, it is mind-blowing to me that one of the most recognizable players, arguably one of the most recognized, top 5 at Duke, didn't even like that. That wasn't even part of his sort of world or thought process until, what did he say, like sophomore in high school? Jeez. And then you think about how much success players have at an organization like that. And for him to be part of, like, really tough times at Duke, and then also part of really great times, because he won 2 national championships as an assistant coach. He has really seen it all. I think for anyone that listened to that interview right there, I think you could take so many life lessons away from that. Hard work, never give up, commitment from his parents. Like he said at the beginning, getting on the right bus, having the right people around you, the right people supporting you. Yeah, and then maybe sometimes focusing on the team that's around you and not necessarily the outside noise, because I think a lot of us do focus on the outside noise. I'm always interested in what, like, the Christian Leitners, the Grayson Allens, the people that were so disliked at an organization like that, at a place like Duke, how that made them feel. And you hear so many times, like, I'm going to worry about the people that are in this room. I'm not going to worry about the people out there, because they can say what they need to say. The people in this room is what matters. And that's kind of what I heard. So thank you. Thank you to Steve Wojciechowski. Listen, I know there's probably people out there that still harbor a little bit of anger for Wojo because of the Duke connection, but I really hope that you took something away from that interview that maybe gives you a little bit of, like, newfound respect for that guy. So don't shoot the messenger. Okay, I've got a fan text or I got a DM from somebody, and I wanted to read it to you guys. I told Carl that I would read it. So he said, "Hey, Shannon, NASCAR fan from Australia. Awesome. Been following your career since about 2008 when I started following the sport. So I started covering NASCAR in 2007. So it was right after that you started following Carl. He said, just reaching out as you were asking for feedback at the beginning of the Brett Raymer pod. Love the show and the variety of different guests you have from all walks of life. Loved the Coach K and the Ricky Carmichael interviews, and I'm halfway through Brett's interview. I like the way you interview your guests as if you were like lifelong friends, and not just asking them questions read off a script. Keep up the great work and look forward to future episodes." Thank you, Carl. I told you that I was going to read that on here, so there it is. I appreciate you. I appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the feedback from all of you guys. We read it all. I read it all. I do try to respond to most of it. Sometimes it gets lost, kind of, I'll hit the button to look at notifications and it pops up and I'm doing something, I try to get back to it to respond to you guys. If I don't take it personal. But I really appreciate the feedback, and also let our guests know that you heard them on the show, because we're rolling. Sons and Daughters is rolling. Subscribe. That's how we continue to build the platform. That's how we continue to get great guests. So subscribe, tell your friends, and definitely tell them about today's episode. So Sons and Daughters, you can find us everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, personal page, DM us. We're taking all that stuff. So we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. I really hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I did. That was awesome. Bye.